welcome to Bookaccino Live. I am so glad to have you here today. We're going to be talking about books that are coming out between now and May 3rd, and then we're going to give you a look ahead of June, where we've got some spectacular books coming up. So here we go. Okay, wait 1 second now. Okay, first of all, we've got to get your top picks from March's presentation. And we always like to see what you love, what you're looking forward to reading most. And it's fun because anybody who attends live, you can share right away, well, what the books that you're most interested in reading. And usually when the poll starts, whatever is there at the beginning is somewhat there at the end, or usually 1, 2, and 3 are the same. And then 4 and 5, there's sort of a race to see what books are going to be there. So we're leading off with Lisa Scottolini's What Happened to the Bennetts. It's one of my bets on selections. It's fast paced. I can see why it's number 1. And we've got Diamond Eye, which is just out. And it's from, hold on just 1 second. Let me just move this little bar. Kate Quinn. And this is her first hardcover book. So anybody who's read Kate before, just know this is her first hardcover. And it debuted at number 3 on the Times list. Lisa was number 2. So you guys are spot on with your picks. Next book is The Bookwoman's Daughter by Michele Richardson. We know that you're very, very excited about that one coming out. And I am going to be interviewing Michele around the time that book is published. We've got Ann Tyler's French Braid. That was your 4th pick. And Jane Green's Sister Stardust, which is such a trip going back to Morocco during the 70s. And we've got everything from the Beatles and Jagger. And her star of her book is Talitha Getty, who was Paul Getty's wife. And she had one of these fabulous lives where everyone followed her around. She was a model. She was a superstar just because of who her personality was. And Jane writes really, really well about her in this setting. And you really feel like you're in Morocco once you're finished. I have also interviewed Jane. So that's another fun one for you to be able to go catch. Click here, hold on 1 second. Okay, we're going to start with fiction today. It's always a big battle. Is it fiction or historical fiction? Fiction. So we're going to start with Ray Ann Thane's Summer at the Cape. And it's time for us to start thinking summer. I mean, as I said before, it's so beautiful outside here today. And it's time to start thinking of, oh gosh, what are we going to be talking about for summer books? Here we've got the older siblings to identical twins, Violet and Lily. Cammie Porter was always the odd sister out. The divide grew even wider when their parents split up. While the twins stayed in Cape Sanctuary with their free-spirited mother, Rosemary, 14-year-old Cammie moved to LA with her attorney father. Now it's nearly 20 years later when Cammie gets the terrible news that Lily has drowned, saving a child's life. Her mother begs her to return home to help untangle the complicated estate issues her sister left behind. Navigating her own strained relationship, Cammie readjusts to the family and community she hasn't known for decades, including the neighbor who stands in the way of her late sister's dream. Violet grieves the loss of her twin and struggles to find out who she is now without her other half, as the little girl Lily pulls back her into the orbit of the man she once loved. So this is the kind of book that Ray Ann is known for writing. It's got family, it's got relationships in it, and it was one of our spring preview titles. Next up, we got Adriana Trigiani's The Good Left Undone, and this is coming out on April 26th. Adriana's been chatting about this book. She's got a fabulous tour lined up, so if any of you are Adri fans, time to go out and look at her website and figure out where she's going to be and catch her on tour. So we've got Matilda. Kimberly family's matriarch has always been brusque and opinionated. Now, as she faces the end of her own life, she's determined to share a long-held secret with her family about her own mother's great love story, with her childhood friend Silvio, and with the dashing Scottish sea captain, John Lowry McVickers, the father Matilda never knew. Domenica Cabrelli thrives in the coastal town of Viareggio until her beloved home becomes unsafe when Italy teeters on the brink of World War II. Her journey takes her from Marseille to Scotland, to wartime Liverpool, where Italian Scots are imprisoned without cause. And that's something that she learned doing her research. I'll get to that in 1 second. Domenica experiences love, loss, and grief as she longs for home. 100 years later, her daughter Matilda and her granddaughter Anina face the same big questions about life and their family legacy, while Matilda contemplates what is worth fighting for. And this story came to Adriana in a very interesting way. She was in Scotland and she was off touring around and she went to a wedding. She says, doesn't everybody always go to a wedding when you're there? And you just see a wedding in town. And she went out and she was standing outside and the padre came over to her and was, talking about who she was and what she was. And he told her she should go look into the cemetery behind. And there were some things that she wanted to see. And there was some information that she just didn't know at all. So it was very, very interesting about how this book got its roots and, what it ended up being. Just close something right here. Okay. Next up, we've got Book of Night by Holly Black. I include this because this is Holly's first book for adults. It's very well known in the YA space. And this is her first crossover for fantasy. And I know that a number of you have asked us, can we get some fantasy books during the presentation? So here's one that you're really going to want to be on top of. Charlie Hall has never found a lock she couldn't pick, a book she couldn't steal, or a bad decision she wouldn't make. She spent half her life working for magicians who manipulate shadows to peer into locked rooms, strangle people in their beds, or worse. Lomists guard their secrets greedily, creating an underground economy of, let me see if I can do this one, remorse. And to rob their fellow magicians, they need Charlie Hall. Now she's trying to distance herself from past mistakes, but getting out isn't easy. When a terrible figure from her past returns, Charlie descends into a maelstrom of murder and lies. Determined to survive, she's up against a cast of doppelgangers, mercurial billionaires, glomists, and the people she loves best in the world, all trying to steal a secret that will give them vast and terrible power. This is destined to be really big just because of the following that Holly has. And then we've got The Homewreckers by Mary Kay Andrews, her latest book. It's Love, Murder, and Faulty Wiring. It's coming out on May 3rd. So we've got Hattie Kavanaugh went to work restoring homes for Kavanaugh and Son Restorations at 18, married the boss's son at 20, and became a widow at 25. When Hattie falls head over heels for a money pit of a house, she's determined to make it work. But disaster after disaster occurs, and her dream might cost Kavanaugh and Son their livelihood. Hattie needs money and fast. When a slick Hollywood producer shows up in her hometown of Savannah, Georgia, she gets a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to star in a beach house renovation reality show called The Homewreckers, cast against a male lead who might be a love interest or the ultimate antagonist. Soon there's more at stake than bad pipes and dry rot. During the demolition, evidence comes to light that points to the mysterious disappearance of a young wife and mother years before. Now, here's something really interesting about this book. First of all, I love that Mary Kay is doing house porn again, which she's so known for doing. Redo the house, what ends up happening with the house or whatever. So I absolutely love that. The other thing is how she came to the story. She bought a beach house down on Tybee Island, and they were doing renovations on it, and they pulled a wall apart. And inside, they found driver's license, wallet, like all kinds of things from this woman. Who was this woman? And she tracked this woman down. So when she's sitting and writing this mystery about what's in the wall, it was after something that really happened to her. And I found that was so interesting because I remember when she was sharing on social media, these are the things I found. Who is this person? And I was thinking of a couple of years ago, we moved a desk that was in the kitchen. We were going to build a new cabinet there. And out dropped this picture of these two people. And we looked and we're like, who are they? Like, we don't know. And there'd only been two previous owners of the house. So my son, Greg, tracked down the son of the people that we thought were in the picture, get a copy of the picture and sent it to them. And he explained that that was his parents, 1974, all the stuff background on them. And we got a lot of background about the house that we didn't know. So it's really funny when you find these little kernels of history, like what is it? And this was important to somebody at one point, and what is it now? So it's really, really fun to hear the story behind this book. And we've got Love, Marriage by Monica Ali coming out on May 3rd as well. Yasmin Gurami is 26, in training to be a doctor like her Indian-born father, and engaged the charismatic upper-class Joe Sangster, whose formidable mother Harriet is a famous feminist. The gulf between the two families is vast. So too is the gulf in sexual experience between Yasmin and Joe. As the wedding day draws near, misunderstandings, infidelities, and long-held secrets upend both Yasmin's relationship and that of her parents, a love marriage, according to the family lore that Yasmin has believed all her life. So Monica was shortlisted for the Booker Prize for her book, Brook Lane. So it's very interesting. I actually saw her interviewed about this book, and it was fun to see like how she's putting the characters together and how she was like, pacing the story of what's going to happen. So there we've got Love, Marriage, and I love this cover. Next, we've got Nancy Thayer, Summer Lore. This is coming on May 3rd as well. Now, you longtime people who've watched the show, you know that the first Tuesday of the month is the date where so many books come out. So you're going to hear May 3rd a lot. When four strangers rent a bargain basement rooms in an old hotel near the beach, they embark on the summer of their lives. Despite their differences, the four bond over trips to the beach, Wednesday night dinners, and everything that Nantucket has to offer. But venturing out on their own for the first time with all its adventure and risks could change the course of their lives. 26 years later, after that amazing summer, Ariel, Sheila, Wyatt, and Nick reunite at the hotel where they first met. Life hasn't exactly worked out the way they all hoped, and being back together will mean confronting the past and finding themselves. Meanwhile, the next generation discovers Nantucket. Their children explore the island together, experiencing love and heartbreak and forging lifelong bonds, just as their parents did all those years ago. It's sure to be one unforgettable reunion. I remember hearing Nancy interviewed a couple of years ago, and she said that where she lives on Nantucket, there's a huge line of hedges. And as people walk to the beach, there's a little path like right next to them. She overhears everything that they're talking about. And kernels of ideas for little things in books or themes of books come from who walks down that path. So if you're in Nantucket this summer and you're walking down a path and you see a large thing of hedges, you just don't know who's on the other side. Maybe taking notes. Now we're going to do some historical fiction. We're going to lead off with The Lost Book of Eleanor Dare by Kimberly Brock. It's on sale this week. It's also one of our Mother's Day selections, one of the books that you can enter. There are 8 books. 5 people are going to each win a package of 8 books. So this is one of them. And I am so looking forward to this one because it's set in one of my favorite places, the Outer Banks. So what happened to the lost colony of Roanoke remains a mystery. But the women who descended from Eleanor Dare have long known that the truth lies in what she left behind. A message carved onto a large stone and the contents of her treasured commonplace book. Brought from England on Eleanor's faithful journey to the New World, her book has passed down through 15 generations of daughters who followed as they came of age. 13-year-old Alice has been the next in line to receive it, but her mother's tragic death fractured the unbroken legacy and the Dare Stone, and the shadowy history recorded in the book faded into memory, or so Alice hoped. In the waning days of World War II, Alice is a young widow, and her mother herself, when she is unexpectedly presented with all her birthright, the deed to ever tell, her abandoned family home, and the history she thought forgotten. So I think this is a gorgeous cover. I just love the pheasant feathers and the key. I'm looking forward to reading this. It's my next up book and interviewing Kimberly, because of course this takes place in a very special place. She's doing some events on the Outer Banks and in the South. So highly recommend trying to get out to meet her as well. Next, we've got Little Souls from Sandra Dallas. And Sandra Dallas lives in Colorado, another favorite place of mine, out in Denver. And she has terrific stories of history of what's happened in that part of the country. So it's Colorado in 1918. World War I is raging overseas, but it's the home front battling for survival. With the Spanish flu rampant, Denver's schools are converted into hospitals. Churches and funeral homes are closed, and horse-drawn wagons collect corpses left in the street. Sisters Helen and Ludi have moved to Denver from Iowa after their parents' death. They make a modest income from a rental apartment in the basement. When the tenant dies from the flu, the sisters are thrust into caring for the woman's small daughter, Dorothy. And soon after, Ludi comes home from work and discovers a dead man on the kitchen floor and Helen standing above the body. She has no doubt that Helen killed the man, Dorothy's father, in self-defense, but she knows that's going to be hard to prove. And meanwhile, Ludi is also worried about her fiance over there. As it happens, his wealthy mother harbors a secret of her own and helps the sisters as danger deepens, both from the murder investigation and the outbreak. What I love about Sandra's books is that she really gets into the history and she tells it in such a beautiful storytelling way. Read so many of her books and you feel like you're really a part of that place. Like you look up from the page and you're like, wow, that she really had me in that moment. So highly recommend it. Next, we've got a book that I know you're all looking forward to, The Bookwoman's Daughter by Kim Michele Richardson. It's going to be out on May 3rd. In the ruggedness of the beautiful Kentucky mountains, Honey Lovett has always known the old ways can make a hard life harder. As the daughter of the famed blue-skinned Troublesome Creek packhorse librarian, Honey and her family have been hiding from the law all her life. But when her mother and father are imprisoned, Honey realizes she must fight to stay free. Picking up her mother's old packhorse library route, she begins to deliver books to the remote hollers of Appalachia. Honey is looking to prove that she doesn't need anyone telling her how to survive. But the route can be treacherous, and some folks aren't as keen to let a woman pave her own way. So we've got the follow-up to The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. Next, we've got a book called The Trust by Hernan Diaz. I heard him speak about this book, and it just sounds so intriguing to me. Also out on May 3rd. Even though the roar and effervescence of the 1920s, everyone in New York has heard of Benjamin and Helen Rask. He's a legendary Wall Street tycoon. She's the daughter of eccentric aristocrats. Together, they have risen to the very top of a world of seemingly endless wealth, as a decade of excess and speculation draws to an end. But at what cost have they made their immense fortune? This is the mystery at the center of Bonds, a successful 1937 novel that all of New York seems to have read. Yet there are other versions of this tale of privilege and deceit. So there we've got Trust. Now, thrillers and mysteries. Got a good number of these. From David Baldacci, we've got Dreamtown, and it's the latest in his Archer series. So here what we've got, it's the eve of 1953, and Aloysius Archer is in Los Angeles to ring in the new year with an old friend, aspiring actress Liberty Callahan, when their evening is interrupted by acquaintance of Callahan's, Eleanor Lamb, a screenwriter in dire straits. After a series of increasingly chilling events, mysterious phone calls, the same blue car loitering outside her house, and a bloody knife left in her sink, Eleanor feels that her life is in danger, and she wants to hire Archer to look into the matter. Archer suspects that Eleanor knows more than she's saying, but he can officially take on the case. Before he can officially take on the case, a body turns up inside Eleanor's home, and Eleanor herself disappears. So there we've got Dreamtown, set in one of people's favorite places, LA. Next, we've got Kingdom of Bones from James Rollins. He's back doing thrillers. You may remember that earlier this year, he had written a novel of fantasy. This book is on sale on April 19th. A United Nations relief team in a small village in the Congo makes an alarming discovery. Men, women, and children have been reduced to a dull catatonic state. Their environments surrounding them, plants and animals, grow more cunning and predatory, evolving at an exponential pace. The insidious phenomenon is spreading from a cursed site in the jungle, known to the locals as the Kingdom of Bones, and sweeping across Africa, threatening the rest of the world. What has made the biosphere run amok? Is it a natural event, or more terrifying, did someone engineer it? Commander Gray Pierce and Sigma Force are prepared for the extraordinary, and they've kept the world safe. Yet even these brilliant and seasoned scientific warriors do not understand what is behind this frightening development or know how to stop it. As they race to find answers, the members of Sigma quickly realize that they have become a prey. So there we've got Kingdom of Bones. Next, we've got City on Fire by Don Winslow. It's a book that was supposed to come out last fall, beginning of a trilogy that Don wrote, and it's all set where he grew up in Rhode Island. He held the book back because he wanted to make sure that he was able to do live events, because he felt very strongly that this is a book he wanted to get out and meet people and talk about. So the book was held from October till now, at the end of April, because they're figuring that this would be a more safe to be able to go out on the road. So two criminal empires together control all of New England until a beautiful modern day Helen of Troy comes between the Irish and the Italians, launching a war that will see them kill each other, destroy an alliance, and set a city on fire. Danny Ryan yearns for a more legit life and a place in the sun. But as the buddy conflict stacks body on body and brother turns against brother, Danny has to rise above himself. To save the friends he loves like family and the family is sworn to protect, he becomes a leader, a ruthless strategist, and the master of a treacherous game in which winners live and the losers die. From the gritty streets of Providence to the glittering screens of Hollywood to the golden casinos of Las Vegas, Danny Ryan will forge a dynasty. Now, it's interesting. Don wrote this book. He went back home. This is where he has always grown up to write this book. And he wrote it actually as his mother was home. He was home when his mother was dying. And he said he would just feel so strongly about this part of the country, and writing something set there meant so much to him. So remember, this is the beginning of a series that he is trilogy. I understand that he's going to be doing. Next, we've got The Fervor by Alma Katsu, coming on April 26th. This is an author I read years ago, and I confess I haven't been back to read her in between, but she was a very, very strong thriller writer when I read her first couple. As World War II rages on, the threat has come to the home front. In a remote corner of Idaho, Mika Briggs and her daughter Aiko are desperate to return home. Following Miko's husband's enlistment as an Air Force pilot in the Pacific months before, Miko and Aiko are taken from their home in Seattle and sent to one of the internment camps in the Midwest. It didn't matter that Aiko was American born. They were Japanese and therefore considered a threat by the American government. Mother and daughter attempt to hold on to elements of their own life in the camp when a mysterious disease begins to spread amongst those interned. What started as a minor cold quickly becomes spontaneous fits of violence and aggression, even death. And when a disconcerting team of doctors arrive, nearly more threatening than the illness itself, Miko and her daughter team up with a newspaper reporter and widowed missionary to investigate. So there we've got The Fervor. So we've got An Honest Lie by Tarryn Fisher. Tarryn Fisher was part of our, if you read the other books, in case you missed the other books that she's read, and this is the new one that's going to be coming out. And I'll be interviewing Tarryn in the next couple of weeks. The book sounds really good. And she's one of those authors that is writing really, really successfully, but has yet to break out and be like really huge, but could be on the verge of that. So here's An Honest Lie. Her gold is, her past is a wound, but it is also a weapon. So Lauren Rainey lives at the top of Tiger Mountain, remote, moody, cloistered in pine trees and fog. It's a sanctuary, a new life. She can hide from the disturbing past she wants to forget, if she's allowed to. When Rainey reluctantly agrees to a girls' weekend in Vegas, she's prepared for an exhausting parade of shots and slot machines. But after a wild night, her friend Braith doesn't come back to her hotel room. And then Rainey gets the text message sent from Braith's phone, someone has her. But Rainey is who they really want, and Rainey knows why. And what follows is a twisted, shocking journey on the knife edge of life and death. She wants to say Braith and herself, the only way to step back is to step back into the past. So there you've got An Honest Lie. And I always love when people come up with names that I've never seen before, and Braith is one of them. So mark that down. Next, we've got The Change by Kristen Miller. This is also one of our Mother's Day books. You have until, I believe it is May 6th to enter to win. Tom will confirm that later on when we do the chat afterwards, but I think it's May 6th to enter to win, and we've got 8 books. So this is one. In the Long Island oceanfront community of Maddock, 3 women, Jo, Ness, and Harriet, discover that midlife changes bring a whole new type of empowerment. Guided by the voices only Nessa can hear, the women discover a teenage girl whose body was abandoned on a remote beach. The police have written the victim off as a drug addict sex worker. Women refuse to buy into the official narrative. Their investigation into the girl's murder leads to more bodies into the town's most exclusive and isolated enclave, a world of stupendous wealth where the rules don't apply. With their newfound powers, Jo, Ness, and Harriet will take matters into their own hands. So it's not over, it's time, and it's The Change. We're going to do my memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. And this is a part of the presentation that usually does not have that many books in it, but this week we've got a surprising number of them. We're going to start out with Bomb Shelter by Mary Laura Philpott. It's out this week. A lifelong worrier, Mary Laura Philpott always keeps an eye out for danger, a habit that only intensifies when she becomes a parent. But she looked on the bright side too, believing that as long as she cared enough, she could keep her loved ones safe. Then, in the dark of one quiet pre-dawn morning, she's awoke abruptly to a terrible sound and found her teenage son unconscious on the floor. In the aftermath of a crisis that could darken her signature sunny spirit, she wondered, if this happened, what else could happen? And how do any of us keep going when we don't know for sure what's coming next? So its bomb shelter is love, time, and other explosives. And it's really interesting that she's got this little turtle that's in the yard, and she insisted that he make a cameo on the cover. So that's the reason for the picture there. And it's like one that she really, really fought for. So buy the book with the turtle, because there's a real meaning behind that for her. Next, we've got Robin Roberts' Brighter by the Day, Waking Up to New Hopes and Dreams. It's on sale this week. And it's also another one of the Mother's Day selections. In the last 16 years of the esteemed anchor of Good Morning America, Robin Roberts has helped millions of people across the country greet each new morning. She sought to bring a bit of positivity into each day, even in the most trying of times. And now she shares with readers the guidance she's received, her own hard-won wisdom, and eye-opening experiences that have helped her to find the good in the world and usher in light, even on the darkest days. Drawing on advice and knowledge she's gleaned from conversations with loved ones, spiritual practices, and life experiences, Robin offers a window into how she feeds her own mind and spirit and soul, and invites readers to do the same. And those people who have known Robin Roberts for years know her experiences with cancer. Now she's going through it with her partner as well. And we're like, this is a person who's had a lot happen in her life. So Brighter by the Day is something she aspires to every single day. Now I've got Healing by Theresa Brown. I'm actually reading this right now. So I'm always intrigued by people in the medical profession and how they see things. And this subtitle is When a Nurse Becomes a Patient. Theresa Brown tells a poignant, powerful, and intensely personal story about breast cancer. She brings us along with her from her mammogram that would change her life through diagnosis, treatment, and recovery. Despite her training and years of experience in oncology and hospice nurse, she finds herself continually surprised by the lack of compassion in the medical maze, just as so many of us have. Why is she expected to wait over a long weekend to hear the results of her cancer tests if they're ready? Where is the empathy from caregivers? Why is she so often left in the dark about procedures and treatments? From her new perch as a patient, she also takes a look back, the rare candor at some of her own cases as a nurse, considering what she didn't know then and what she could have done better. So the whole book is structured on what's happened to her, but she's also looking at overarching what's happening in the medical community, including some things that she probably thinks now are more faux pas or could have been handled better on her part. It's very interesting because speaking with doctors, the more I could say authoritative you are or informed you are, the better off you can see things being. And here you're seeing this in her own trying to take control of her own case. A very interesting book. Next, we've got Hello, Molly, Shannon with Sean Wilsey. It's coming from Echo this week. At age 4, Molly Shannon's world was shattered when she lost her mother, baby sister and cousin in a car accident with her father at the wheel. Held together by her tender and complicated relationship with her grieving father, Molly was raised in a permissive household where her gift for improvising and role-playing blossomed alongside the fearlessness that would lead her to become a celebrated actress. From there, she ventured into the wider world of New York and LA show business, where she created her own opportunities and developed her daring and empathetic comedy. Filled with plenty of behind-the-scenes stories, Hello, Molly spans Molly's time on Saturday Night Live. At the same time, it explores with humor and candor her struggle to come to terms with the legacy of her father, a man who both fostered her gifts and drive and was left with the impossible task of raising his kids alone after the death of their mother. So there you go, Hello, Molly. And you know that title was going to be one they came up with easily, I bet. Next, we've got Left on 10th from Delia Ephron. And you may have seen pieces about this. There was a great piece in the New York Times about it the other day. It's on sale this week. Delia Ephron has struggled through several years of heartbreak. She lost her sister, Nora, and then her husband, Jerry, both to cancer. Several months after Jerry's death, she decided to make one small change in her life. She shut down his landline, which crashed the internet. She channeled her grief the best way she knew by writing a New York Times op-ed. The piece caught the attention of Peter, a Bay Area psychiatrist who emailed her to commiserate. Recently widowed himself, he reminded her they shared a few dates 54 years before, set up by Nora. Delia did not remember him, but after several weeks of exchanging emails and 60s folk songs, he flew east to meet her. They were crazy, utterly in love. But this was no rom-com. 4 months later, she was diagnosed with ALM, a fierce leukemia. So the book is Left on 10th, A Second Chance at Life. And it's one of those super moving memoirs. And you know that if I do find it really funny that she went a couple of dates with him and doesn't remember him. And I'm laughing because I think I can remember everybody I dated. I think I could do that. I'm not sure. See if you can. Try that tonight. Okay, next we've got from Anna Quinlan, we've got Write for Your Life. What really matters in life, what truly lasts in our hearts and minds. Where can we find community, history, humanity? In this lyrical new book, the answer is clear, through writing. This is a book that for what Anna Quinlan calls civilians, those who want to use the written word to become more human, more themselves. Write for Your Life argues that there's never been a more important time to stop and record what you are thinking and feeling. Using examples from the past, present, and future, from Anne Frank to Toni Morrison, from love letters written after World War II to journey reflections from nurses and doctors today, this book vividly illuminates the ways in which writing connects us to ourselves and to those we cherish. Drawing on her personal experiences, not just as a writer, but as a mother and daughter, she makes the case for recording our daily lives in writing, which is essential. And I've talked about this, I know, at events in the past, of like the text messages are not getting saved. The emails are not getting saved. Where is our shared history going to be? I think this would be a fabulous book to give somebody who's graduating or moving into a new phase of your life, because it truly, if you don't write it down, how are you going to remember some of these things that matter to you so much at the time? And where is your legacy going back? Is it a bunch of text messages, what you have to save your phone for somebody? Because people don't know how you feel or what has happened in your life, because everything is something fleeting. If you give up your AOL address, do you lose all your mail? Things like that. So I'm big on, I know I've talked about this before, writing your own life down. Next, we've got Finding Me, coming from Viola Davis on April 26th. In my book, you will meet a little girl named Viola who ran from her past until she made a life-changing decision to stop running forever. This is my story, from a crumbling apartment in Central Falls, Rhode Island, to the stage in New York City and beyond. This is the path I took to finding my purpose, but also finding my voice in a world that didn't always see me. As I wrote Finding Me, my eyes were open to the truth of how our stories were often not given close examination. We're forced to reinvent them into crazy, competitive, judgmental world. So I wrote this for anyone running through life untethered, desperate and clawing their way through murky memories, trying to get some form of self-love. For anyone who needs reminding that a life worth living can only be born from radical honesty and the courage to shed facades and be you. So I think it sounds like a very powerful book from Viola Davis, and I would expect nothing less. Next, we've got Tina Brown, who I remember as the editor-in-chief of Vanity Fair, but she's also the best-selling author of the Diana Chronicles. And she is super into the royals and has good knowledge of exactly how the palace works. So this is picking up where the Diana Chronicles left off. The Palace Papers reveals how the royal family reinvented itself after the traumatic years when Diana's blazing celebrity ripped through the House of Windsor like a comet. Brown takes readers on a tour de force journey through the scandals, love affairs, power plays, and betrayals that have buffeted the monarchy over the last 25 years. We'll see the Queen's stoic resolve after the passing of Prince Margaret, the Queen Mother and Prince Philip, her partner of 7 decades, and how she triumphs in her Jubilee years, even as the family troubles rage around her. She explores Prince Charles' determination to make Camilla Parker Bowles his wife, the tension between William and Harry on different paths, the ascendance of Kate Middleton, the downfall of Prince Andrew, and Harry and Meghan's stunning decision to step back as senior royals. So you got the Palace Papers. If you missed the last couple of years, it's all right here. It's exactly what's ended up happening. You know who's where, what happened. If you missed the news, here you go. Next, we've got The Puzzler by A.J. Jacobs. And I love A.J. Jacobs because he always does books that are like completely off my target of what I would think I would love. But then I sit there and go, wait a second, have I ever really thought about this? A couple of years ago, he did A Year of Living Biblically. He followed the Bible and did everything you were supposed to do, including for a long time, had a really long beard. It was like very, very interesting. He has got to have the most patient wife going. So let's talk about The Puzzler. What makes puzzles, jigsaw, mazes, riddles, Sudokus so satisfying? A.J. Jacobs, a master of the immersion journalism, that's exactly what he does, immersion journalism, and nightly crossworder, set out to determine their myriad benefits, and maybe in the process, solve the puzzle of our very existence. Well, almost. In The Puzzler, he meets the most zealous devotees, enters sometimes with his family in tow. And that's where I tell you, it's really funny when he takes the family along for these journeys. In any puzzle competition that will have him, unpacks the history of the most popular puzzles and aims to solve the most impossible head scratchers, from a mutant Rubik's Cube to the hardest corn maze in America to the most sadistic jigsaw. And you just know with AJ, this is also going to be laced with a lot of humor. So if you're a puzzler, if you want to be a puzzler, I am married to a puzzler. On Sunday mornings, Tom spends so much time doing puzzles. And every time we got a print subscription to the Wall Street Journal, there are more puzzles in there. I need to stop. I need to stop anything else coming in this house that might contain a puzzle. And every year at Christmas time, the New York Times does a section of puzzles. And every year, it's, I guess, like the second week in December, they do it. I actually hide it and wrap it up and give it to him for Christmas, because if he gets this in advance, I'm lost. I'm going to put in the tree up and doing everything by myself. Next, we've got Unmasked, My Life Solving America's Cold Cases by Paul Hose with Robin Gabby Fisher. Robin is an author that I absolutely adore, and I can picture her as a co-writer, how fabulous she'd be. She wrote a book about the fire at Seton Hall a couple of years ago, and that's what I wrote about in the newsletter a couple of weeks ago, where I completely remember being at that event and how special it was. This is coming out on April 26th. When I look back at my long career, there's a lot of proud of. I've caught some of the most notorious killers of the 21st century and brought justice and closure for their victims. I want to tell you about a lifetime solving these cold cases, from Lacey Peterson and J.C. Dugard to my 20-year hunt for the Golden State Killer. But deeper question eats at me as I ask myself, at what cost? I've sacrificed relationships, joy, even fatherhood, and the pursuit of evil always came first. Did I make the right choice? Something I grapple with every day. Yet as I stand in the spot where a young girl took her last breath, as I look into the eyes of the family, I know that for me, there's never been a choice. I don't know if you can solve your case, I whisper, but I promise I'll do my best. And it's a promise I know I will keep. Sounds like an absolutely fascinating book, because he just has such an in-depth knowledge of like all these kinds of cases and what went into, because it doesn't happen quickly. What happens when you have to sit there and figure everything out? And it's going to take months and years to get cases solved. 20-year long hunt. Next one is Where the Children Take Us by Zane E. Asher. It's how one family achieved the unimaginable. It's on sale on April 26th. It's also one of our Mother's Day titles. Awaiting the return of her husband and young son from a road trip. Okay, I'm going to see if I can do this. Obia Julie, Tom knew I was going to butcher this one. Iboya Julie received shattering news. There's been a fatal car crash and one of them is dead. Where the Children Take Us, her daughter Zane E. Asher tells the story of her mother's harrowing fight to raise 4 children as a widowed immigrant in South London. There's tragedy in this tale, but it's not just a tragedy. Drawing on tough love parenting strategies, she teaches her sons and daughters to overcome the daily pressures of poverty, crime, and prejudice, and much more. With her relentless support, the children exceed all expectations, becoming a CNN anchor, an Oscar-nominated actor, and a medical doctor, and a thriving entrepreneur. So this is a story of where something happens, it's horrible to family, but where the children took her from there on their ride. And I will work on pronunciations of those names, which I saw today and went, oh dear, really need to get in touch with the publisher. Next, we've got Fly Girl by Ann Hood. I adore Ann Hood. She's written books about knitting. We have sat at events and talked about knitting. There was one event where we were a person away, and in the middle was Bill Goldstein, who's on the Today Show, and he does Bill's books on the Today Show in New York. Well, this is really funny. Ann and I are talking about knitting, and he's like in the middle, and he's watching back and forth like he's at a tennis match. It's like, I'm talking about this, he's talking about that, we're going back and forth. And all of a sudden he says, I have a sweater with a hole in it, and I don't know what to do. And how could you fix the hole in my sweater? And it was just such a funny thing. It's like anything with wool, he was going to bring up this moment in the conversation. So this is writing about another time in Ann Hood's life that I knew about, but I don't completely know about. And I've got this book and looking forward to reading it and interviewing her. So it's 1978, the tailwind of the golden age of air travel. Flight attendants were the epitome of glamour and sophistication. Fresh out of college and hungry to experience the world and maybe one day write about it, Ann Hood joined their ranks. After grueling job search, she survived TWA's rigorous breach training academy and learned to evacuate 7 kinds of aircraft, deliver a baby, mix proper cocktails, administer oxygen, and stay calm no matter what the situation. In the air, she found both adventures she dreamed of and the unexpected realities of life on the job. The airline industry changed around her. She began to write, even drafting snatches of her first novel from the jump seat. She revealed how job empowered her despite its roots in sexist standards. Dying to read this. It reminds me of Falling, the thriller that we were talking about last year, and how T.J. Newman said that she was a flight attendant and she would just sit there and go back and write like little notes from the jump seat. So when you see a flight attendant on a plane, they're writing in the jump seat, just be sure they're not looking at you. You should just know there might be some notes happening there. Dying to read this one. Next, we've got Magic Season by Wade Rouse. And this is a very special book coming out on May 3rd. You may know Wade Rouse, but you may know him by his other name, Viola Shipman, where he writes books under his grandmother's name as an homage to her. Well, this is the first memoir in 10 years, and it's a deeply personal one. Before his success in public relations, his loving marriage, and his storied writing career, Wade Rouse was simply Ted Rouse's son. A queer kid in a conservative Ozarks community, Wade struggled to garner his father's approval and find his voice. For his part, Ted was a hardline engineer, offering little emotional support or encouragement. But Wade and Ted had one thing in common, an undying love of the St. Louis Cardinals. For decades, baseball offered Wade and his father a shared vocabulary, a way to stay in touch, connect, and express their emotions. But when his father's health takes a turn for the worse, Wade returns to Southwest Missouri to share one final season with his father. As the Cards race towards a dramatic pennant race, Wade and his father begin to open up in ways they never thought possible. And together, inning by inning, during their own magic season, they'll move towards forgiveness, reconciliation, and peace. And the book is broken out in innings. So as you sit and read it, it's inning 1, inning 2. Wade had a fun thing happen last week. The radio station of the St. Louis Cardinals actually interviewed him as part of their opening day kind of ceremony. So this is a very different book from what he's written before. I'm really looking forward to it because I've enjoyed his nonfiction as much as I've enjoyed his fiction through the years, but it's usually been with a more comedic kind of a tone to it. So I want to see what the emotion is that goes into this book. Next, we've got Trailed by Catherine Miles. And I had the pleasure of hearing Catherine talk about this book and how the story came to her. May 1996, Julie Williams and Wally Winans were brutally murdered while backpacking in Virginia's Shenandoah National Park. Despite an extensive joint investigation by the FBI, the Virginia police, and the national park experts, the case remained unsolved for years. In early 2002, then Attorney General John Ashcroft announced that he would be seeking the death penalty against Darrell David Rice in the first capital case tried under the new post 9/11 federal hate crimes legislation. But 2 years later, the Department of Justice quietly suspended its case against Rice, and the investigation has since gone cold. The 20th anniversary of the murders, journalist Catherine Myers began looking into the lives of these adventurous women, along with a murder investigation and subsequent case against Rice. Discovers evidence of cover-ups, incompetence, and crime scene sloppiness that seems to be part of a larger problem in the United States pursuit of justice in national parks. She also becomes convinced of Rice's innocence and zeroes in on a different likely suspect. And what's really interesting is she said that when women go out alone into the wilderness, they don't know what they could meet on the trail. And it's something that a lot of times people are just going to go, oh, we're going to go out and explore and everything is going to be like this beatific little world. A number of women who are assaulted or put into precarious situations along the way by predators of a human sort along the way was something that we hadn't looked at that much. So when Catherine decided she was going to do this, this is what she was going to write about. And John Grisham has actually said this is a beautifully written account of America's tragedy. I couldn't put it down. And when she was describing the book, it's one that I said to them, could you just like send that to me right away? So it's on my to be read list. Got June titles to look forward to because we know you want to look ahead. We're going to start out with It All Comes Down to This by Theresa and Fowler, which is coming out on June 7th. Meet the Geller sisters, Claire and Sophie, a trio of strong-minded women whose pragmatic widowed mother, Marty, will soon be dying and taking her secrets with her. Marty has ensured that her modest estate is easy for her family to deal with once she's gone, including a provision that the family's summer cottage on Mount Desert Island, Maine, must be sold, the proceeds split equally among the three girls. Enter C.J. Reynolds, an enigmatic Southern ex-con with his own hidden past, who complicates the situation. All is not what seems, and everything is about to change. So it all comes down to this. So I like this cover. It's just a beautiful cover. Covers are something that are intriguing me more and more. Maybe it's because I'm spending less time in bookstores, and like you just see a cover like, unto itself, not, against a flock of other things. Oh, this book I absolutely loved. I got an advance copy of this. I could not put it down. It was a bets on selection that I selected, I want to say last fall or even the end of the summer when I was sitting out on the deck. Tracy Flick Can't Win. And you're going to remember Tracy Flick because she was in his earlier novel, Election. You're not up to speed. You can watch the movie as well because it's like completely and utterly fun. Tracy Flick is a hard-working assistant principal at a public school. In Election, she was trying to get elected to the student body. So we know, we're in the same school. Public high school in suburban New Jersey. Love books set in New Jersey. Still ambitious, but feeling a little stuck in midlife, Tracy gets a jolt of good news when the longtime principal abruptly announces his retirement, creating a rare opportunity for Tracy to ascend to the top job. Just as she did with student council, she throws herself into her work with renewed zeal, determined to prove her worth to students, faculty, and the school board, all by managing her personal life, a 10-year-old daughter, a needy doctor boyfriend, and a burgeoning meditation practice. But nothing comes easy to Tracy Flick, no matter how diligent or qualified she happens to be. She brews on her past, and she'll be aware of storm clouds brewing in the present. Is she really a shoo-in for the principal job? Is the superintendent plotting against her? Why is the school board president's wife trying so hard to be her friend? And why can't she ever get what she deserves? And also, not written here, why does the high school football player come back to be honored? And what does that really mean? So we've got Tracy Flick. It's a book that I just read in an afternoon and laughed because the way he strings the comedy like throughout this whole thing, it just will sit there and make you laugh. And you're just there like your head spinning, head turning, and smiling all at the same time. So there we've got Tracy Flick Can't Win. And There He Kept Her by Joshua Moehling. This book is actually a book that we're giving away right now. We have a contest going, and it's going to be open until a week from Friday. So those of you who are watching live, it's a week from Friday. Those who aren't watching live, it's April 22nd. So there's my math of going ahead. That's pretty good. It's coming out June 14th. When two teenagers break into a house on a remote lake in search of prescription drugs, what starts as a simple burglary turns into a nightmare for all involved. Emmett Burr has secrets he's been keeping in his basement for more than 2 decades, and he'll do anything to keep his past from being revealed. As he gets the upper hand on his tormentors, the lines blur between victim, abuser, and protector. Personal tragedy has sent former police officer Ben Packard back to the small Minnesota town of Sandy Lake in search of a fresh start. Now, as sheriff's deputy, Packard is leading up the investigation into the missing teens, motivated by a family connection. As clues dry up and time runs out to save him, Packard is forced to reveal his own secrets and dig deep to uncover the dark past of the place he now calls home. Got Blood Orange Night by Melissa Bond. I heard this presented at an evening to booksellers, and we all left dying to read this book. It's my journey in the edge of madness. And Melissa just tells, when she pitches the story to us, we were just there like, whoa. Melissa Bond raised her infant daughter and special needs 1-year-old son. She suffers from unbearable insomnia, sleeping an hour or less each night. She loses her job as a journalist, a casualty of the 2008 recession, and her relationship with her husband grows distant. Her doctor casually prescribes benzodiazepines, a family of drugs that includes Xanax, Valium, Klonopin, Ativan, and increases her dosage on a regular basis. Following her doctor's orders, Melissa takes the pills night after night. Her body begins to shut down, and she collapses while holding her infant daughter. Only then does she learn that her doctor, like many other doctors, has overprescribed the medication, and quitting cold turkey could lead to psychosis or fatal seizures. This addiction is not well studied, and few experts know how to help Melissa as she begins the months-long process of tapering off the pills without suffering debilitating, potentially deadly consequences. It is crazy when she sits there and describes what's going on. And then she's out one day and somebody says, oh, this is what the doctor has given me. He just says, if I take Xanax, I'll be okay. And she just goes into a panic because she knows where this could lead for this person, but especially if taken with other drugs. So it's a fascinating story about somebody who was legitimately prescribed what to do and what ended up happening for her. Next, we've got Ellen Hildebrand's new one, The Hotel Nantucket, coming on June 14th. Fresh off a bad breakup with a longtime boyfriend, Nantucket sweetheart Lisbeth Keaton is desperately seeking a second act. When she's named the new general manager of the Hotel Nantucket, a once Gilded Age gem she turned abandoned eyesore, she hopes that her local expertise and charismatic staff can win the favor of the new London billionaire owner, Xavier Darling, as well as that of Shelley Carpenter, the wildly popular Instagram tastemaker who can help put them back on the map. When Hotel Nantucket appears to be blissful paradise, there is a lot of drama behind those closed doors. The staff and guests have complicated pasts, and the hotel can't seem to overcome the bad reputation it earned in 1922 when a tragic fire killed 19-year-old chambermaid Grace Hadley. Grace gleefully haunting the halls, the staff harboring all kinds of secrets, and Elizabeth's own romantic uncertainty. Is the Hotel Nantucket destined for success or doom? So it's by the author of Golden Girl. Now I've got Vacation Land. I interviewed Meg Mitchell-Moore a couple of years ago about her Two Truths and a Lie book. This is Vacation Land, and I suggest I picked this because who doesn't want to be on this beach right now? It's coming out on June 14th. Meg is also one of the organizers of the Newburyport Book Festival, and she's asked me to be one of the interviewers up there. And it's going to be virtual on Saturday. Oh my gosh, last Saturday. I think it's Saturday, April 30th. I am going to be interviewing Jean Hanff Korelitz about the plot. And also we're going to be taking a look at her next book that's coming up as well. So that's what we've got coming up for June. Louisa's come to her parents' house in Maine this summer with all three of her kids, a barely written book and a trunk full of resentment. She's hoping that the vacation will soothe the irritation that she's feeling about her life choices and replace it with enthusiasm for both her family and her work. But all isn't well in Maine. Louisa's father, a retired judge, is suffering from Alzheimer's. Louisa's mother is alternately pretending everything is fine and not pretending at all. And one of Louisa's children happens upon a very confused letter referring to something Louisa thinks her father couldn't possibly have done. Louisa's not the only one searching for something in Maine that summer. Christy took the Greyhound bus from Pennsylvania with one small suitcase, $761, and a lot of baggage. She has a past she's trying to outrun, a secret she's trying to unpack, and a new boyfriend who's impossibly kind. She can't figure out what she did to deserve him. But you can't keep the various lives from colliding forever. So we've got Vacation Land, all these books set in these vacation places. As we've done the last couple of years, we're planning to do that feature where we feature the books that are set in different locations and the indie bookstores that are located near them. So you can go buy the books and support the indie bookstores while you're there on vacation, or pretend that you're there and buy the book from the store. Two ways to be able to support the stores. Next, we've got The House Across the Lake from Riley Sager. It's coming on June 21st. Casey Fletcher, the recently widowed actress trying to escape a streak of bad press, has retreated to her family's lake house in Vermont. Note, if you ever become a famous actress, you have to have someplace to run to if you haven't figured that out in this presentation, okay? Armed with a pair of binoculars and several bottles of bourbon, she passes the time watching Tom and Catherine Royce, the glamorous couple living in the house across the lake. Tom is a tech innovator, and Catherine is a former model. And one day on the lake, Casey saves Catherine from drowning, and the two strike up a budding friendship. But the more they get to know each other, and the longer Casey watches, it becomes clear that Catherine and Tom's marriage isn't as perfect as it appears. When Catherine suddenly vanishes, Casey immediately suspects Tom of foul play. What she doesn't realize is there's more to the story than meets the eye. And us, we who are sitting there at this presentation, how many times can that line be used? More than meets the eye, and that shocking secrets can lurk beneath a most placid of surfaces. I think that if you go into publishing, you have to think all different ways to say that same line over and over. Not as it seems, and danger lurks beneath. So just know that. So this is a house across the lake, and I am very intrigued with what's going on across the lake. Pull out binoculars. Next, we've got a book that I know you guys are crazy about called The Lies I Tell by Julie Clark. We did a giveaway for this book, and oh my gosh, did you enter to win? It was one of our highest contests because people are absolutely loving Julie Clark from her last book. So you just want to say, who wrote The Last Flight? What is she writing now? And I'll give you a little secret. There are a group of indie stores that when you buy this book, they've got copies of an alternate ending to The Last Flight. So if you're buying in an indie store, see if they're one of the ones that are getting that as part of their package, the promotional package that they've got for the book. So this is coming out on June 21st. Meg Williams, Maddie Litton, Melody Wild, different names for the same person, depending on the town, depending on the job. She's a con artist who erases herself to become whoever you need her to be, a college student, a life coach, a real estate agent. Nothing about her is real. She slides alongside you and tells you exactly what you need to hear. And by the time you're done, you've likely lost everything. Kat Roberts has been waiting 10 years for the woman who upended her life to return. And now that she has, Kat is determined to be the one to expose her. But as the two women grow closer, Kat's long-held assumptions begin to crumble, leaving Kat to wonder who Meg's true target is. I've been told by people that this book is even better than The Last Flight, and I was from those people who love The Last Flight. Julie's terrific. If you can ever see her live in an event, you definitely want to be able to do it. She's wonderful. Okay, so these are the notable paperback releases from hardcovers last year, new in paperback this year. Got Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, Mother May I by Jocelyn Jackson, which is right now one of our paperback new release spotlights on the site. The Husbands, which is coming out the middle of this month. And we are going to be featuring that again on reading group guides. And some of our groups are going to be able to talk to Chandler Baker. We begin at the end with Chris Whitaker, who I will be interviewing. It'll be in this week's newsletter. I will be interviewing Chris for Macmillan next Thursday night and talking to him about We Begin at the End. And I was kind of honored because he was asked who he wanted to have interview him of all the people that interviewed him last year, and he selected me. So I'm very, very touched. Love the book. This is a very different cover from the other books. So if you see it other places, just know that this is the new paperback cover. We've got The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Heller. She is going to be our book reporter, Bookaccino Live Book Club author that will be here next Wednesday. Send a reminder about that in our follow-up emails as well. And O. William by Elizabeth Strout. So lots happening, lots going on. Here are the bets on selections that I've made so far this year, and know that there are more to come because I've been doing some great reading this year. These are the recent Book Reporter Talks To interviews that I've done. The Lifeguards with Amanda Eyre Ward, Jane Green for Sister Stardust, The Long Weekend with Gilly Macmillan, John Searle's Our Last Affair, My Darling Husband by, basically, I pull this down. Hold on a second. I'm so bad at remembering names. I can remember everything about the person and the name is going to evade me. Hold on a second. With Kimberly Bell, and The Violin Conspiracy with Brendan Slocum. 6 really terrific interviews. It's so funny. There's a bunch of people named Kimberly, so I want to keep them all straight this year. But I had fun talking to them all. Lots shared in each of the interviews. And now just give 1 second. Okay, for the Mother's Day promotion, these are the books that you can win: Atomic Atom, Brighter by the Day, The Change, The Lost Apothecary, which was a huge success when it came out in hardcover, The Lost Book of Eleanor Dare, the paperback of Ruby Falls, Bridgerton, The Viscount Who Loved Me. For anybody who's watching the show, there's where it all started, and Where the Children Take Us, which is the book that I described earlier. And for our next Bookaccino Live event, it's next Wednesday night. Miranda Cowley Heller is going to discuss The Paper Palace. And yes, we're going to discuss that ending. We just want to see, and she's in my last interview with her, we talked about, she thought that, we'll save it for Wednesday night. Just tune in. Here's just some great reading. Our next Bookaccino Live event will be on Wednesday, May 11th. I don't know about you, but I cannot even remember what month we're in. I'm like, are we in summer? Are we in fall? Like, where are we? I'm completely discombobulated this year. Well, we'll be looking at books from May 10th through June 7th because we do have a calendar and I can look at that and remember where we are. And then we're going to look ahead to July. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate it. We always love doing Bookaccino Live, and be ready to come back and join us again next month.